Good morning, welcome back to Aliyah Yomi. Today we're going to be learning Kedoshim Revi, the fourth Aliyah in Parshas Kedoshim. It is a short Aliyah of 5 psukim long, running from Perik Yud Tes Pasuk Lamed Gimel to Lamed Zayin. Topic of our Aliyah is honesty and integrity. There really are only two main issues in our Aliyah. The first is if a ger, a convert, comes to dwell among you, lo sainu oisai, do not afflict them. You should treat them like your own citizens. Love them like yourselves because you were foreigners in the land of Egypt. That's the first mitzvah. The second is lo sasu ovel b'mishpat. Do not do perversion in justice. B'mida mishkal v'misura, whether it be in the way one measures with containers or weights or length of measuring, all these things the person needs to have is the right measures, the correct and honest measures, because I am Hashem your God, Asher Atzesi, Eschem Me'eretz Mitzrayim, because I took you out of Egypt and you should do all my commands. A few basic questions. Number one is, what is the focus on Gerim right now? Why are converts in the focus? Ibn Ezra explains that this follows the mitzvah of honoring elders. An elder is a person who may have had a physical strength in their prime and has lost it. They are more vulnerable now. A ger is a person who may have had more social strength in their natural community, in their natural place of bringing up, and they've lost that now because they've decided to uproot themselves and put themselves into a new culture. Both of these individuals are people who had strength and are more vulnerable now, and we are obligated to make sure to make up for that, to make sure that they are always respected and comforted in their new surroundings. The Torah goes on to explain that this is also in order to teach us that we have to respect non-Jewish elders. This is a universal mitzvah of respecting elders. It's very special that in verses in Israel, at the very front, it says, Mibnei Seva Takum, quote in the Pasuk at the end of the last Aliyah. That refers to Jewish and non-Jewish as well, says the Torah. Rashi points out that this mitzvah in our Aliyah is about oinaas devarim. It's about not afflicting them with words. Not cheating them in business is to be found later on in Parshas Bahar. But when it comes to oinaas devarim, that means to say hurting them with words. What to include in that is to remind them of their difference and their different upbringings. So to a person who is a convert to Judaism, to talk about their past in a derogatory way, making sure that they feel that they're different. That is the prohibition over here. Rav Yosef Bechor Shor, it explains that this connects actually to the next mitzvah, which is don't cheat them, don't mistreat them, because they are not familiar with the practices of your land. The next mitzvah is the practice of hin tzedek and evat tzedek and honest measures. Don't think that because they are new and they don't know your culture, therefore you can mistreat them. That is inappropriate and incorrect as well. One last point over here is the Orach HaMakadosh says that note that it starts off with ki agur itecha ger, when a convert will live with you, singular, ba'artzachem, in your land, plural. This is because there's two things which are incredibly spiritually moving to help along personal conversion. That is the original ger, the original convert to the ideas of monotheism. That is Avraham Avinu, that individual. That's the ideal. That is the role model. And then the land itself. The land itself has a certain level of kedusha which attracts and allows people to come back to it. Now, one of the halachic applications of hin tzedek and evat tzedek and all these different measures, dry measures, wet measures, weights, all these different things that are talked about over here. So the point is that the examples which are given in the Gemara and the Mefarshim quote them is you can't have different kalim for measuring, meaning to say you can't have different cups used for measuring which are of different sizes. You can't use them in different temperatures because of the expansion and the contraction. You can't use ropes during the summer and the winter, which are going to be different sizes because of contraction and expansion, to measure things, to cheat people. So the ropes would be used for measuring land areas. You have to be very careful about making sure that everything is measured with integrity. When it comes to this mitzvah, it's not just that the baseline is a pruta, which is a small amount of money. It's actually kol shehu. The isur is any amount. Any amount is considered cheating. The Gemara Mem Testament Aleph tells us that there's more to be learned over here, and that is that when the pasuk says hin tzedek efa tzedek, hin is actually a subsection of an ephah in terms of the actual measurement. So rather, the pasuk is not teaching us about this particular weight. Rather, it's telling us hein shelcha yeh tzedek. Your yes should be. The word hein actually means yes. Your hein, your yes should be yes, which means to say A person should not make a contract, should not make a verbal commitment and then renege on that contract as well. It is worthwhile noting that the Gemara does limit this to a case where, let's say, a person sometimes has to back out of an oral agreement. Sometimes there are reasons that a person may be able to back out of an oral agreement. But if a person goes into an oral agreement, into a verbal commitment, and knows that they're not going to follow through with it, that's when this is being said, is you have to have honesty and integrity when it comes to your commitments. Finally, the last question, or the second last question that's worthwhile noting over here is, why is honesty connected to leaving Egypt? Hashem says you got to make sure to have these honest measures because I took you out of the land of Egypt. Rashi quotes the Gemara, which says two possibilities, the Gemara about Metzia, which says, number one is I took you out on condition that you should be honest and ethical. So number one is that's the condition, that is the prerequisite for coming out of Egypt was in doing this. And number two is in Egypt I distinguish between the seed which was firstborn and the seed which was second. I mean, let's say you had twins, and we're talking about a moment of conception. We're talking about seconds, if anything, between the conception of twin 1 and twin 2, and twin 1 is going to be the Bechor, the firstborn. So Hashem says, I was careful enough to distinguish between who's going to die and who's going to live in Egypt on that night. I'm going to make sure to, even the hidden things that you do in the back room of your shop, if you're going to soak your measures in salt, debate as to whether it makes them heavier, lighter, maybe it makes them bigger so there's less space for what they contain. But you're going to play around with your measures and you think that it's going to be invisible. I know, because I took you out of Egypt and I know what goes on behind the scenes. What's the connection to Egypt? If I took you out of Egypt in order to keep measures, I mean, there's many mitzvahs. Why would Hashem say I took you out of Egypt in order to keep the honest weights and measures? The Ha'emek Dover, the Netziv, explains for a very, very simple reason, is that the Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt, was to teach us about the emunah in the Hashgacha of Hashem, that Hashem has providence, Hashem looks after this world and looks after our lives. When a person cuts corners and cheats, they're essentially denying Hashem and saying that I need to take things into my own hand, which means to say that by cheating in business, what essentially you're saying is I'm the person who's in charge of all of this, and that is incorrect. That is denying the very point of Yetzias Mitzrayim, which is why HaKadosh Baruch Hu reminds us you need to do this in order to remember Yetzias Mitzrayim. With this we conclude the fourth Aliyah in Parshas Kedoshim. In the meantime, have a wonderful and meaningful day.